Welcome to Shomach Shov on the Daf, Shir Sponsor, Nishpas Am Yaakov Shalom Le'Apas Yitzchok. We're holding over the Zara Daf Nun Vov. The Gemara Amud Beis brings there was the Hu Yenuka, who was this child who was learning Meseches Avoda Zara in 6 years. Rashi says he was 6 years old learning Avoda Zara, and they went and asked him questions. So there's a few ha'aris over here that brought down the Sefer's Det Soifim on the idea of a child who was so wise and so smart that at the age of 6, they asked him questions. The Amoraim asked him questions in Inyane Meseches Avoda Zara. So Nekuda number 1 is brought down the Ben Ish Chai in his Tshuva Sefer Rav Peholim Chelik Dalid, and the Chelik called Soy Disharm Siman Vov brings a question that he was asked: what pshat the Rochel and Leo were able on their own to be at tzaddikus, to do the right thing? They were growing in the surroundings of Rishayim. So how were they able to figure out the true emes and to be worshiping HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So he says some tzaddikim, they have a big neshamas, that they're born with these neshamas, and on their own they connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says don't be so surprised, because the Arizal brings in Shai Gegulim that there was this Yenuko brought down the Sefer HaZoyar who was Megale Soides HaTorah as a Yenuko. And he says Shmuel HaNavi was a Chacham Gadol, he was only 2 years old. And Rachel, who was Zoichet in Nevuah, when the Meraglim came to her, even though she was not Jewish. And Sarah Imenu had a big neshama before Avraham Avinu married her. So he says there are such a thing that children, very young children, have big neshamas and able to connect to a very high place. Now this leads to another interesting discussion. When you have a very young child who is in such a high level, do we treat him differently legabe halachas of ktanim? So the Gris Moshe Feinstein brings in one of his chuvas, when he speaks about some minyanim that have to do with seksveka, to explain the shita of the Rambam, he says that even you have a child who has a lot of deya. He says we have sometimes little children that are able to learn Gemara Toitzes that adults can't learn. And he brings our Gemara, the Gemara in Avoda Zara. Our Gemara, they have a Yenuko, was able to tell him chuvas, halachas Avoda Zara. And he brings the story of the 7 children of Chano that were able to answer the Caesar and why they're not going to do Avoda Zara. And he says the youngest one is brought down the Medrash, she was still nursing from his mother. He continues and says even the Vilna Goyen, he was such a big chacham that when he was a child, he knew so much Torah. He says the Gabi Halacha, we consider all these children like children that have no das. Because that's the Gzeres HaKosov, that's why we have a Kabbalah, that until the age of 13 they have no das, and even though they're so smart, they know so much Torah, we still treat them as Ein Lem Das. Mitzat Sheni, the Tzlach, and Brochas Daf Lamed Aleph, regarding when Shmuel argued with Eli, he says a tremendous chiddush. He says that Eli was testing Shmuel to see how smart he is. If he's very smart, you'll get punished. And the Binyan Ariel in Parshas Vayeshev learns from the Re'im and the Parsha that a child who's extremely smart will get punished b'din Shemayim. And in the Pardes Yosef, Parshas Achimois, at the beginning of Parshas Achimois, he brings these 2 Mekoros, and he says it's a big chiddush according to that. That some children you consider them to be ktanim, some not. But it's mashma from the Binyan Ariel, and that may be also Pshat and Tzlach, that of course b'dinei Beis Din, we don't punish anybody before the age of 13. But b'dinei Shemayim, or in a dinim of chutzpah, like we have by Shmuel asking Eli, that may be different. That's not called a regular dinim of Beis Din. So therefore there you can punish someone at a lower age. But Al Kopanim, we find that this idea, they have children, they're extremely wise and smart, and they're able to get to the Das and Havana, and that's based on the fact that they have this big neshama, and that's the Yenuka mentioned in our Gemara. Anyone who wants to join the Shomach Shava email list, what's good, please email shomachshava@gmail.com.